With staff's recommendation.
Chairman Daniel.
Agree with staff recommendation.
Last case is TD 190960819. Commissioner Demerson.
Agree with staff recommendation.
Commissioner Alvarez.
I agree with staff's recommendation.
Chairman Daniel.
Agree with staff recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have no fair housing cases under agenda item 5. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
Thank you. Let's move to agenda item 6. We have no wage claim cases that are pulled for additional consideration on docket 51. Is that correct?
That's correct. None pulled for additional discussion, but you will receive the short form dissent list now.
I move we accept staff recommendations on the remaining wage claim cases on docket 51.
I second the motion except for those cases which I am dissenting as reflected on the wage claim short form dissent list for docket 51.
I concur with the chairman's motion, except for the cases on which I am dissenting as reflected in the wage claim short form dissent list for docket 51.
The motion passes with the exceptions that are noted.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's move to agenda item 7 and consideration of unemployment insurance cases on docket 51. You guys can proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, sir.
Beginning with case 240-4301, Commissioner Demerson.
The appeal tribunal decision should be reversed regarding the employer's non-appearance at AT2. The employer, in both its petition to reopen AT2 and its testimony, has consistently stated that it did not receive the hearing notice. In addition, the employer testified that it has had issues receiving mail in the past. As such, the employer has sufficiently rebutted the presumption of receipt. We should therefore find that the employer had good cause for its non-appearance at AT2 and resubmit.
I would affirm the employer failed to rebut the presumption of receipt regarding the second hearing notice. Therefore, the employer did not establish good cause. Additionally, the employer gave conflicting reasons for missing the first hearing. As such, the employer also failed to establish good cause for that non-appearance. Regarding the job separation, the employer made several allegations against the claimant, but these were not the reason that the claimant was fired. The claimant was fired for not being able to install an alarm. However, the employer admits that the claimant was not licensed to perform this type of work. Therefore, the employer has not shown misconduct and the claimant should remain qualified for benefits. Affirm the AT, no employer good cause for AT2 and AT1, no misconduct chargeback.
Good cause for employer's non-appearance at AT2, resubmit.
241-3860, Commissioner Alvarez.
The employer missed a hearing because the employer's representative was unable to find alternative care for her 3-year-old and for her husband who had had a stroke. Under these circumstances, the employer established good cause for their non-appearance and the case should be resubmitted. In the alternative, if the employer is not found to have had good cause for their non-appearance, the claimant had good cause to quit. The claimant's hours were reduced when his children aged out of the employer's program. The claimant continued to work the reduced hours, performing any available task as the employer promised the claimant her hours would be increased in the future. The employer also led the claimant to believe that she would be promoted. After the employer reopened, the claimant's hours were not increased and she was not promoted. Therefore, she had good cause to quit due to the reduction in hours and wages. Modify the AT, no employer good cause, no voluntary leaving, billing employer, void adequate response, and change employer account number.
We should reverse the appeal tribunal decision regarding good cause. The employer's executive director cared for a disabled husband in 3-year-old special needs ward. Since only a few individuals were able to assist her with these duties, and they were all unavailable on the date of the continued hearing, the employer established good cause for its non-appearance, and the case should be resubmitted for merits testimony. In the alternative, even if the employer did not have good cause, the claimant should be disqualified from benefits. The claimant alleged she quit because her hours were reduced, yet because she had been working under the new schedule for several months prior to quitting, this did not constitute good cause to quit. The evidence indicates that personal matters related to her children were the impetus for the claimant's choice to leave her job. While compelling, these matters were personal and not good cause connected with the work. We should modify the AT decision. The employer did not have good cause for its non-appearance, voluntary leaving, reimbursing employer not billed, adequate employer response, and change employer account number.
Good cause for employer's non-appearance, resubmit.
2425812, Commissioner Demerson.
We should reverse the appeal tribunal decision. The claimant was discharged after he walked off the job less than halfway through his shift and failed to promptly respond to the employer's attempts to contact him. Although the claimant alleged that he had permission to leave the work site, contemporaneous documentation consisting of text messages and emails clearly show that the claimant was not authorized to leave. In fact, his leaving created quite a disruption and resulted in the employer's client requesting that the claimant be removed from the client's location. While the claimant seemed to believe that instructions to move his car off-site meant that he could leave and not return, nothing in the instructions grants the claimant permission to abandon his work. The claimant should have sought clarification. By working off the job, the claimant mismanaged his position of employment, and we should reverse the AT decision misconduct.
The decision should be affirmed. The claimant was the only party providing firsthand sworn testimony, and he has consistently stated that he was given permission to leave early. The claimant had worked for the employer for 2 years, and it was common practice to leave work when the work was completed. The evidence does not establish misconduct connected with the work. Affirm the AT, no misconduct.
Affirm the AT, no misconduct.
Short form dissent.
2428178, Commissioner Alvarez.
The claimant's appeal to the commission should be deemed timely, and the case should be resubmitted on the merits. The claimant sent an email to the commission appeal staff on the day to file a timely appeal. She included as an attachment to the email her appeal from the AT decision in this case. The claimant submitted an appeal document to the commission by the appeal deadline, and her appeal should be considered timely. Deem commission appeal timely and resubmit the case on the merits.
Because the claimant did not file a timely appeal using TWC's recognized and accepted methods, the claimant's appeal is late, and we do not have jurisdiction to consider the underlying merits. Therefore, we should dismiss the claimant's appeal and leave the underlying AT decision in full force and effect.
Although the commission did not provide the best customer service in not responding to an email for almost 4 weeks, because the claimant did not follow instructions on how to submit a proper appeal, and because there's no good cause exception to the timeliness rules, the claimant's appeal should be dismissed as late. So late commission appeal, untimely claimant appeal to the AT, misconduct, no chargeback.
Short form dissent.
2435861, Commissioner Alvarez.
The AT decision should be modified. The claimant resigned after she had surgery to remove a tumor and suffered a deterioration in her vision. She was no longer able to perform her job duties despite the accommodations made by the employer. On the recommendation of her doctor, she moved to be closer to relatives who could assist her. The claimant quit due to medically verified illness or injury and should not be disqualified from the receipt of benefits. Modify the AT, no voluntary leaving, no chargeback due to MVI.
The appeal tribunal decision should be affirmed. The claimant quit her job due to medical issues. However, the employer made efforts to accommodate the claimant, and the claimant was not advised by a doctor to resign. As such, the claimant quit without good cause connected with the work. We should therefore affirm the AT decision, voluntary leaving, no chargeback.
Affirm the AT, voluntary leaving, no chargeback.
Short form dissent.
2436245, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision should be modified. The claimant worked for the employer for over 10 years, but she had a stroke in October of 2018. The claimant returned from leave in February 2019. The claimant was discharged less than 6 months later due to illnesses complying with the employer's deposit procedures. The claimant testified her memory comes and goes since her stroke. The claimant's inability to perform her job duties following her stroke were not misconduct connected with the work. Modify the AT, no misconduct, chargeback, MVI, void adequate response.
The appeal tribunal decision should be modified. The employer discharged the claimant for failure to properly handle deposits. The claimant was responsible for ensuring that deposits were properly handled and acknowledged that it was possible that some deposits were not handled correctly prior to her final day of work. In addition, the claimant had been warned about this issue. As such, the claimant mismanaged her position of employment and was discharged for work-connected misconduct. We should therefore modify the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback, sever the adequate response issue.
Modify the AT, misconduct, no chargeback, sever adequate response.
Short form dissent.
2441624, Commissioner Demerson.
We should grant a rehearing in this case. First, not much testimony was taken regarding the final incident leading to the claimant's discharge. File documents indicate this happened in July, but it seems as though the parties were not questioned about this. In addition, the claimant's supervisors were unavailable to testify at the hearing because she was out of the country on a pre-planned trip. Because her testimony is clearly relevant, could shed light on the final incident in this case and should be considered before we rendered our decision, we should rehear for testimony from the claimant's supervisor and to further develop the record regarding the final incident.
The AT decision should be affirmed. The employer did not provide firsthand evidence of the claimant's alleged wrongdoing. Moreover, the testimony from the employer did not describe any specific conduct by the claimant on the final incident that led to his dismissal. The claimant denied any inappropriate behavior under oath. The evidence from the employer was insufficient to establish misconduct connected by the claimant. Affirm the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
Rehear.
That was the last case pulled for additional discussion on docket 51. You'll now receive the short form dissent list for docket 51.
I move we accept staff recommendations on the remaining UI cases on docket 51.
I second the motion except for those cases which I am dissenting as reflected on the UI short form dissent list for docket 51.
Now, I concur with the chairman's motion, except for the cases on which I am dissenting as reflected in the UI short form dissent list for docket 51.
The motion passes with the exceptions that are noted.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. This brings us to the end of agenda items 3 through 7. Let's take just a really brief break to allow us to reset for the rest of the meeting. Thank you. Good morning. Okay, we're back in session. I'm not showing anything on the agenda for agenda item 8, so we will not take that up today. This is agenda item 9, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding the report to the governor and legislative leadership offices concerning the estimated unemployment trust fund balance pursuant to Texas Labor Code Section 204.061 and the estimated employment and training investment holding fund balance available for transfer pursuant to Texas Labor Code Section 204.123.
Good morning, Chair,
Good morning.
Commissioners, Mr. Cerna. For the record, I'm Chris Nelson, Chief Financial Officer. This morning, I will be updating you on the Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund and trends regarding the benefits paid. As of November 30th, 2019, the trust fund balance is approximately $2.14 billion, which is still above the floor of $1.18 billion. This number is slightly reduced from my last presentation. We made a correction to reference 1.05 on the schedule for the reimbursements we received from other states. Relatively minor, but we did make that correction. For the last six weeks ending October 26th, the total weekly benefits paid were $34.8 billion, slightly down from last month's report of $38.6, but still higher than the 6 weeks average of a year ago. Initial claims for the 6 weeks ending November 30th were 13,180, slightly up from my last report as well. And that concludes my remarks. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
No comments.
Hmm?
I think Commissioner report, the average UI tax rate for all employers dropped about 1.25% for calendar year 29. That's been the lowest since 2009. So that's good news for our Texas employers.
All right, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. This is agenda item 10. This is discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding on board contract year 2020 child care supplemental allocations.
Again, for the record, Chris Nelson, Chief Financial Officer. Before you is a proposed 2020 child care supplement allocation in the amount of $35 million. In late 2018, child care discretionary funding increased substantially by about $240 million. TWC put out part of that increase in late 2018 and has continued to fund allocations at increased levels in 2019 and 2020. The amount, which also increased the number of children served during that time. The amount being proposed to you is part of a plan to continue to spend down that unexpended balance while maximizing the number of children in care. This allocation is, as required, also carves out 2% as required for quality activities, which is $700,000. That concludes my remarks, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Comments or questions?
No comments.
None. Do we have a motion?
I move that we approve the supplemental child care allocations for 2020 allocation year as discussed.
Second.
Motion passes. This is agenda item 11. This is discussion, consideration, and possible action on board contract year 2021 child care planning estimates and the use of demographic data.
Again, before you is a discussion paper on child care planning estimates for 2021. Consistent with TWC Rule 800.58, the child care allocations are prepared based on a needs-based formula, which includes the following factors: children under the age of 5, the total number of people residing in a workforce area whose income does not exceed 100% of the poverty level, children under the age of 13, children under the age of 13 whose family's income does not exceed 150% of the poverty level. Every year, TWC contracts with the Texas Demographic Center as part of the University of Texas San Antonio to annually receive this data and normally uses it with the most recent year's data as part of its allocations and planning estimates. With increased funding, TWC has received over the last couple of years, staff have looked for ways to provide better planning information and a more measured application of the factor data. What you have before you is a discussion paper and a proposed 2021 planning estimate in the amount of $754,301,868, which is consistent with the 2020 allocation and the $35 million supplemental just approved, but uses the most 3 recent years worth of factor data versus 1 year. Workforce areas will still see funding levels increase or decrease over that time based on demographic shifts, but we'll see them over a 3-year period versus a 1-year change. And that concludes my remarks, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Comments or questions?
No, sir.
None here.
Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the use of the most recent 3-year average of child care demographic factors for 2021 child care allocations and planning estimates as discussed.
Second.
The motion passes. This is agenda item 12. Discussion, consideration, and possible action on modifications to local workforce development area child care allocations pursuant to 40 Texas Administrative Code, Section 800.51.
The next child care discussion paper you have before you is for proposed modification for 2020 and 2021 child care allocations. As staff from child care and early learning, operational insight, and finance have been working on these comprehensive child care issues related to this increased funding that I've mentioned starting back in 2018, we've determined that boards may manage their funds better coupled with the 2020 supplement allocations that you just approved if they were given flexibility to spend these funds over a longer period of time. As you recall, similar modifications were approved in September for Dallas and North Central. Boards have analyzed their carry-forward funds in light of the current performance, and 18 boards, those highlighted in yellow on your schedule, have requested modifications out of their 2020 allocation and into the 2021 child care allocations. The total amount of the modification would be $21,283,798. I'd also like to point out that this modification would only carve out the direct care expenses, as boards have, in their feedback to us, have already committed the 2% quality out of their 2%, out of their 2020 allocation. So what would happen is they'll be slightly over the 2% requirement in 2020 and slightly under if these modifications are approved in 2021. But across both years, the 2% requirement would have been met. And that concludes my remarks, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any comments or questions? And do we have a motion?
I move that we approve modification of child care allocations for 2020 and 2021 allocation years as discussed.
Second.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is agenda item 13, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding proposed revisions to the Vocational Rehabilitation Services Manual, chapters C-305, C-310, and D-204-5, and the Vocational Rehabilitation Standards for Providers Manual, chapter 24. Good morning.
Rehabilitation. The reference Vocational Rehabilitation Services Manual and Standards for Providers chapters are related to communication access providers. Those providers are sign language interpreters and communication access real-time translation CART captioning providers. The providers of communication access to VR customers is required under 34 CFR section 361.45C. The current rates used for sign language interpreters and CART providers are based on rates published by the Texas Health and Human Services, HHS, Communication Services for State Agencies, and have not been updated since 2012. These rates include administrative fees, late cancellation fees, no-show fees, etc. The Rehabilitation Services Administration, RSA, has clarified that VR cannot pay for services not received based on 2 CFR 200.53B. Therefore, VR cannot pay for no-show fees and late cancellations. Current VR policy allows for the payment of no-shows and late cancellations to communication access providers. Policy revisions are necessary to become compliant with federal regulations, and rates will need to be increased to ensure an adequate provider base to serve customers who are deaf and hard of hearing. Staff have developed proposed rates and seek the Commission's approval to share the proposed rates with these communication access providers and obtain their input. If approved, staff will host webinars to explain proposed changes to policy and discuss the proposed rates. Then VR would come back to the Commission and seek adoption of the proposed rates. Do you have any questions?
Questions or comments?
No.
Do we have a motion?
I move that we notify VR communication access service providers of the proposed new rates for services, expansion of the travel premium, and revisions to the VR service manual, and standards for providers manual as discussed by staff so that providers can provide questions and comments.
Second.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
This is agenda item 14, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding Form RSA 70B, Independent Living Services for Older Individuals Who Are Blind, annual report.
Again, for the record, I'm Carlene Geiger for Vocational Rehabilitation. This morning, I am bringing for your consideration and approval the 70B report, which is the annual report for the Independent Living Services for Older Individuals Who Are Blind, ILOIB. The 70B contains information for the recently concluded fiscal year, such as funding and expenditures, staffing, data on individuals served, types of services provided, and examples of customer success stories. If approved, the 70B report will be submitted to the Rehabilitation Services Administration by the due date of December 30th, 2019. Do you have any questions?
Comments or questions?
No, sir.
No, thank you.
Do we have a motion?
I move that we approve the Independent Living Services for Older Individuals Who Are Blind annual report for submission to RSA.
I second the motion.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is agenda item 15. This is discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding submission of the Adult Education and Literacy end-of-year federal report to the Department of Education for program year 2018 and 2019.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, Mr. Serna. I'm Anson Green with the Adult Education Literacy Program. Today I come to you seeking direction on the annual narrative report for the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act Title II Adult Education State Administered Program. This required annual report is due to the Department of Education on December 31st and includes sections on a commission-approved adult education literacy state leadership projects, as well as narratives on specific topics including performance and data quality, technical assistance, and implementation of the integrated English literacy civics program and content standards. This item is up for approval. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Comments or questions?
No, sir.
Not here.
Do we have a motion?
I move that we approve the AEL program year 2018-2019 end of the year report for submission to the Department of Education's Office of Career, Technical, and Adult Education.
Second.
Motion passes. This is agenda item 16, discussion, consideration, and possible action. Approval of required activities funded with Adult Education and Family Literacy Act State Leadership Funds.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, Mr. Serna. For the record, Anson Green, Adult Education and Literacy. Today I come to you seeking direction on funding for approval of two projects out of the State Adult Education and Literacy State Leadership Reserve. The following projects are up for discussion, consideration, and action. The first project, Workforce Integration Initiatives, is a project poised to increase AEL participation and integration with and referral to workforce development boards and vocational rehabilitation services, as well as post-secondary education and training. AEL grantees will use funds to designate staff or secure such services from boards to increase integrated services and related outcomes. The Division of Operational Insight and AEL Department will report the extent to which project efforts result in increased service integration and employment and training outcomes. Contingent upon the results of DOI's review of the outcomes, AEL grantees would be expected to budget for such services after this pilot through their standard core grants, requesting changes to local administrative budgets as necessary. Project 2 is the development and implementation of a performance enhancement mentor initiative. This project will continue performance improvement and operational effectiveness of grantees through intensive program support and mentoring with high quality, high performing peer providers. Through a solicitation process, TWC will identify an eligible entity that must include AEL grantees with demonstrated expertise in meeting select TWC enrollment, measurable skills gains, and credential attainment targets. These items are up for approval. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Comments or questions?
And so the only question I have is on project number 2, Performance Enhancement Mentor Initiative. Is this a one-time thing due to the poor performance of 2 of our grantees?
Typically what we do with initiatives like this, when we start a new initiative, we will try it out the first time and then see how it goes and come back either for approval at current funding levels or higher or lower, depending on how it works, or not at all.
Okay. That was the only question.
Other questions or comments? Is there a motion then?
I move that we allocate AEL state leadership funds as described by staff for the following projects. $2 million for workforce integration initiatives and $500,000 for performance enhancement mentor initiatives.
Second.
Motion passes.
Thank you and happy holidays.
Okay, I'm showing we have materials for agenda item 17, discussion, consideration, and possible action on a child care statewide initiative to support individualized instruction.
Good morning, Chairman,
Good morning.
Commissioners, Mr. Serna. For the record, Allison Wilson, Child Care and Early Learning Division. In 2017, TWC approved $1.5 million in funding for a 2-year statewide initiative. Subsequently, the Commission approved budgeting $750,000 to support the initiative in fiscal year 20. The intention of the Planning for Individualized Instruction initiative was to improve the quality of early learning and subsidized child care by using child progress monitoring tools and related instructional materials. Additionally, supporting child care programs with tools for individualized instruction align with requirements for high-quality public pre-K programs. Staff seeks direction on increasing the FY20 approved amount for the Planning for Individualized Instruction initiative by $1 million in CCDF funds, committing $1 million for FY21, and extending the contract for an additional 2 years based on availability of funds and successful performance of the awarded grantee. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Are there questions or comments?
No, sir.
I have some questions. I'm looking through the data that you provided. So I think I understand sort of how this process works, and I certainly see the importance of it. Would love to see us potentially continue, maybe even enhance, what we're trying to do here in terms of positioning kids for success. I would ask, though, we seem to, your new proposal seems to deviate from kind of the past funding pattern a little bit to me, in that it seems to be shorter chunks and the money seems to be increasing. But when I look at the available data on sort of the number of people we're serving, that appears to be constant. Am I seeing this correctly? Can you confirm that for me?
It has ticked up. The current contract over the previous contract, if you look at just like the average monthly number of participants, it's gone up by about 11%.
Over the same time period?
Yes, that's averaging it by month.
The other question I would have is so it was our first experience with this was it about a 16-month period?
Yes, correct.
And then it looks like our second experience with this is also about a 16-month period.
That's where we are right now, and the contract will be fully expended shortly.
So about like it was the first time.
Yes.
And are you telling me then that we've served 11% more
Teachers and administrators on average by month.
and
Cumulatively, we haven't hit that. Well, I think we have. We just got the numbers yesterday. So.
Yeah. More students as well, or are we just talking about teachers and administrators?
Primarily, more teachers and administrators have been touched. The contract is actually capped at a certain number of child portfolios, so we will hit that again, and then, we can't go over that.
Okay. That's roughly an 18,000 student.
We're at over
roughly.
18,000, and it's capped at 20, I believe.
And my question related to that then would be, you've got the first sort of, call it 16-month, but 24-month experience. You've got the second 24-month experience. Is that the same students in both those experiences?
We would have to go back and look at that, but no, not completely. There are some that are still in the program. And then there are many new teachers that have been brought on board, new classrooms. So it's a mix.
So the 18,000 students that we've reached in the pilot initiative, do we know what portion of the 18,000 students we've reached in the second initiative would be duplicates?
Well, two things. We don't know that, but we could go back and find that out, I believe. But secondly, the way child progress monitoring works, you would want those children to be duplicated. You would want them to continue to be assessed and have a portfolio each year that they're in an early learning program.
Which I would agree with. Well, I'll be real honest. I'm not exactly comfortable voting today not understanding the student portion of this. I applaud reaching more teachers, and I'm certainly for that. My preference today would be possibly to pull this down, get that data, and bring it right back as soon as we're able to answer that question. I would ask my fellow commissioners if that was acceptable to them. Certainly, we can move in whatever the most orderly way here is.
I would be okay with that.
I'm fine with it. There are no time restrictions or parameters around what you're bringing today, correct?
No, there are not.
Okay, yeah.
If that's not going to cause just a major problem for the program, I'd like to know the answer about the student side of it, and then bring this back at the next available meeting date.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much. This is item 18, discussion, consideration, and possible action on a child care statewide initiative to support professional development scholarships.
Again, for the record, Allison Wilson, Child Care and Early Learning Division. The Texas Legislature directs TWC to dedicate funds each year for programs that encourage early childhood professionals to participate in continuing professional development. Since 2014, TWC has directed these funds to a professional development scholarship program to support early childhood teachers in obtaining child development associate credentials and associate's degrees. In August, the Commission approved $750,000 for professional development scholarships in its approval of the FY 2020 operating budget. Staff seeks direction on expanding this initiative to include scholarships for bachelor's degrees and registered apprenticeship programs. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Questions or comments?
I just love this. I love this initiative, and I'm glad to see anytime we can fully fund scholarships to these individuals. It's greatly appreciated. I love it.
We have any results on the 750,000 that was allocated in terms of certifications reached or so?
Yes, and I believe that was in the discussion paper.
It's right.
And if it's in the discussion paper, I'll go back and look at that, but that was just
Okay.
curious about the results from that. So.
Okay.
Anything else? So if I understand this correctly, there was an amount of money that was appropriated by the legislature for this.
Correct.
They've increased it.
Correct.
So we have to come back. Well, I just think we should take a moment and sort of recognize the idea that some good, solid work here has been recognized by a body outside of this one and said, hey, you guys are doing good work here and do more. I don't want that to go without saying. And so I really appreciate all the staff efforts to make what is, by all accounts, a super quality program. And I really appreciate the kind of effort that goes into getting kind of our overall work here recognized. So thank you. Thank you for doing that. Other questions or comments?
No.
I think we do need a motion here.
I move that we conduct a competitive procurement process to award $250,000 for fiscal year 2020 and $750,000 for fiscal year 2021, and allow for the contract that can be extended for FY 2022 and FY 2023 based on funds availability and successful performance. That professional development scholarships programs be expanded to include bachelor's degree scholarships that require participants to commit to remain employed with their current employers for an additional 18 months, and that the professional development scholarships include scholarships for registered apprenticeship programs as described in attachment discussion paper.
Second.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not showing anything for agenda item 19, agenda item 20. Nothing on that one. So agenda item 21, Tom. Oh, here we go.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Chair Daniel, Commissioner Alvarez, Commissioner Demerson. For the record, Michael Britt, Governmental Relations. Yesterday afternoon, congressional leaders released the text of H.R. 1865, which will fund the Labor, Health, and Human Services portion of the federal government through the end of fiscal year 2020. Kind of a breakdown of funding. The released amounts have WIOA adult at about $854.6 million, WIOA youth, $913.1 million, WIOA dislocated workers, about $1 billion, UI state administration, about $2.5 billion, Wagner Pizer employment services grants to states, about $646 million, child care development block grant is $5.8 billion, vocational rehabilitation is approximately $3.6 billion, and career and technical education is approximately $1.9 billion. The U.S. House is expected to consider this bill and another funding bill that's moving along with it later today, and the U.S. Senate has said they will take the bills up by the end of the week. Of course, as you all know, current federal funding expires this Friday, December 20th. Also this morning, Congress has released that they have struck a deal on tax extenders. Included in this package will be an extension of the Work Opportunity Tax Credit through December 31st, 2020. What is being reported right now is that tax extenders package will be added on to one of the two appropriations bills that Congress is going to take action on this week. Like I said, that piece is hot off the presses. So as the details become clear as to which bill the tax extenders will be attached to, we will keep you updated. This concludes my remarks, and I'm happy to answer any questions you all may have.
Questions or comments?
I'd just like to add, according to that, the other thing that's going to be expanded is the $175 million to promote apprenticeship. So I'm glad that Allison's been keeping us up with that, so good thing.
Nothing here.
Thank you.
Mr. Cerna.
Good morning. One couple of quick things. First of all, Texas Public Sector CIO Academy held its annual conference on November 21st. Mr. Chairman, you spoke at that conference. I did want to point out that two of our IT employees won awards at that conference. The first was the Outstanding IT Manager Award, which went to Wendy Kovar, who oversees the team responsible for supporting the automated systems used by TWC's Vocational Rehabilitation Division. Wendy exemplifies the Outstanding Manager Award recognition as she maintains a strong, effective relationship with her customers and the team and works diligently to earn their trust and confidence. In addition, Casey Fithin won the Rising Star Award that recognizes emerging leaders in government IT. He received this award for his many creative talents. He works in IT, supporting the data center operations. He supports ticketing, escalations, audit and risk assessment requests, disaster recovery, and refresh analysis. The refresh analysis means he's part of the team that determines what equipment, both printers and PCs, that we need when we renew those contracts. He's been instrumental in ensuring some changes in our systems that have helped both improve performance and save us some money. And he's done an outstanding job with us. Both of them are here, and I'd like to at least recognize them if that's okay with the commission.
Yes.
And
And I see Heather sitting back there like a proud mama, over here, so we're glad of that. The only other thing I have is I wanted to wish the three of you all, as well as the agency, a happy set of holidays, a nice safe set of holidays, and we'll see you all in the new year. That was it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. The time is now 9:43. The Texas Workforce Commission is now going into executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.0711 concerning pending litigation styled as Dental Health in Arlington Incorporated, a Texas nonprofit corporation, versus Alma D. Castillo and Texas Workforce Commission.